at least mom will be listening.
So if you bring up Counter Stallions, we're just not going to listen to you.
Number one is number one.
1,000 miles away from me. Hello and welcome to the Faith Sports Leadership Podcast, where we talk about three things: faith, sports, and leadership. My name is Ryan. I'm one of your hosts, joined as always by my brother and co-host, Drew Lutz. Drew, how are you doing today?
Doing fantastic. Super excited about our guest today. He is Hoop Dirt Coach of the Week, also a Belmont legend, Indiana high school basketball legend. One of my favorite coaches that I've played for, Coach Steve Drabyn. How you doing, Coach?
Man, it's great to be on with you guys. That's too strong of an intro right there. Drew Lutz, man, legend. You can't put that in with my name, but no, I appreciate it. It's great having you, being on with you guys. And I've listened to, I think, almost all your podcasts. They've been fun to listen to, and just what you guys are doing, just promoting faith and sports and leadership is pretty cool.
Yeah, it's fun. It's fun to have you on. It was one of those things, as we talk about introing you, you might be one of the only people on this planet that I would say I would sweat a little bit against in a free throw shooting contest. One of the only people on the planet that I would possibly consider that I might not be able to beat in a free throw shooting contest. One of the best free throw, like your career record holder at Belmont, correct? That free throw percentage and whatnot.
Yeah, and I tell people, growing up, I knew I wasn't going to be very big or athletic or strong, and I wasn't going to win those battles, so I had to do something well. So I thought free throw shooting is something I could do well, and another way to pad my stats at the end of games too. Make me look better than I am.
There we go. Hey, the secret sauce
Drew
is
was a
out.
part of that too.
Yeah, you taught me that.
Oh yeah.
That's awesome. All right. Well, the way this podcast works, for those of you who haven't listened to this podcast before, first of all, welcome. Those of you who have, welcome as well. We talk about three things: faith, sports, and leadership, and kind of break up the podcast in that way. And so we're going to start by reading a verse in the Bible and just having some quick conversation, some thoughts on a particular passage. So I'll read the verse a couple times. Drew, will start with you, some quick takeaways, and then Coach will throw it over to you about some thoughts from Psalm 46:10. This is the verse. It says, "Be still and know that I am God. I will be exalted among the nations. I will be exalted in the earth." Psalm 46:10. I'll read it one more time, Drew, and then we'll throw it over to you for some thoughts. "Be still and know that I am God. I will be exalted among the nations. I will be exalted in the earth." Again, Psalm 46:10. Drew, some initial thoughts as you read through that verse, and then Coach will throw it over to you.
Yeah, something that came in mind for me especially with having Coach on, he talked about to me last year, because I put a lot of pressure on myself going into my last season. I wanted to make national championship, do all these things with our teams, put pressure on myself about just playing good and whatnot. But he said something about just like the rest of it's just icing on the cake. Like, so just be still, trust God knows what he's doing. And then, just enjoy the moment. I think that was really cool. It was kind of just like a calming peace thing for me when Coach told me that. This verse is really cool, and I think it can help a lot of people.
Yeah, absolutely. Coach, what are some thoughts?
Yeah, I remember having that conversation with you, Drew, and I'd love to take credit for being the one that kind of came up with that thought, but I was not. I remember somebody speaking that same thing to me when I was in college, like, "Hey, Steve, you're already a success," And same thing with Drew last year. Like, "Drew, man, you put in the work, and you already have the free gift of salvation. You're already a great guy, and your character is in like who what your identity lies in, and it's not in the game or winning or championships, but it's in God as your Lord and Savior. So now anything you do, anything you accomplish, it's just icing." And so, yeah, it was just, it gave me a calming peace, back when I heard it, just to go play free and have fun and enjoy it. But another part of that verse I thought was good. I'm reading this book right now. It's called The Humble Life. Really good book. And it talks about like what, as people, what's our view of God? When we think about God, what do we think? And that's the number one question we can answer. And first off, you guys aren't him. I'm not him, So that's where the humility comes from, and just knowing that he's in control um, and guiding our steps and our paths, and um, just to live in freedom and peace and joy, and it takes the pressure off,
Yeah.
because things are going to happen, challenging things. I know your family's going through a challenging time right now, with some sickness and whatnot, and we're all going to be there and go through challenging stuff and tough stuff. But at the end of the day, whose we are and where our identity lies, that's what matters. And just be still and know that He's God and we're not.
Yeah. That's good. I think you guys both hit on the two takeaways that I have. One, there's at the beginning, be still. There's a confidence in being able to just be still. Like if you meet someone who's successful in life, who's made it to the top of their industry, or a great basketball player, like they have a confidence about them to where they don't have to try to prove themselves to people. Where they're working hard and they're getting better, but they are confident and still in who they are. So there's a confidence. There's also humility, and know that I am God, that we are not God, like you said. So I think that this verse, as you were talking, it just reminded me of, there's a confidence and a humility in that verse that I think can catapult us into the life that God has called us to. So, yeah, great input, fellas. And now as we head over to the faith, out of the faith section into the sports section, I'm going to toss it over to Drew, and Drew's got some question about the basketball player and coach that is the legend, Steve Drabyn.
Yes, sir. We're going to start off with some LaPorte High School basketball coach. Nathan Ertz one time told me you took him to some event and he felt like he was walking with some celebrity like Michael Jordan or LeBron James. Like everybody just knew you, man. And just wanted to hear maybe one or two favorite memories from your time at LaPorte.
I don't know. Nathan and I were probably at a family gathering of mine. That's probably where we're at.
Yeah.
But I think I don't think this was the time though. But I remember taking Nathan. I spoke at a LaPorte FCA one year, and when I speak at things like that, I try to take a player, and I think Nathan, I took him that year again. I don't know if that was the thing he was talking about, but
Yeah.
gosh, favorite memories at LaPorte. It was fun growing up. The son of a coach. My dad was one of the assistant coaches for LaPorte boys for a long time, and then one of my best friends today, Nick Otis, his father was the head coach, Joe Otis, and so I remember going to practice as a young boy, 4, 5, 6 years old, and just Nick and I shooting in the side basket, and that's where the free throw thing came from. The Elks National Free Throw Contest, Knights of Columbus, and just idolizing those high school players. Right now at my age and where I'm at, like high school kids seem so young, and but back when I was 4, 5, 6, 7 years old, those guys were legends in my mind. And I can remember being in locker rooms at 4, 5, 6, 7 years old, hearing things, listening to things that I probably shouldn't have heard or listened to. So you grow up fast and you listen to your dad talk with the coaches and strategy and handling teams, and so those were some early memories that were a lot of fun, just being around those teams as a young boy. I remember they called me Little D was my name, was my nickname back in the day. And guys like Joel Beasley, Ian Stewart, Michael Bush, Terry Stevens, just some legendary LaPorte players. And as I got into high school, we had some really good teams. Fortunately, Ben Tonigal, Greg Tonigal, Chris Buchek, Jeff Ballard, Nick Burnell, to name some guys. I was fortunate as a young freshman. A lot of times you don't have great mentors to look up to, but I was fortunate, man. I had some really, really good ones. Guys like I mentioned, the Tonigals and Nick Burnell, Jeff Ballard, and guys that were going to FCA and were not only talking about faith in Jesus but living it out. So I had some great mentors and role models, guys to look up to.
Mm-hmm.
Other memories I can remember, man, Hall of Fame Classic when I was a sophomore. We played Tom Coverdale. That was a pretty cool memory. Even a year before that, we played Noblesville, Tom Coverdale. I was on the roster, the 12-man roster. I did not play, but I had a front row seat to beating Noblesville and Tom Coverdale in the semi-state championship at Mackey Arena. To punch our ticket to the Final Four in 1997 when it was still one class.
Mm-hmm.
That was such a fun time. And then going on, we played Elkhart Central at Mackey the next year, and then I hate bringing this up, but we were fortunate to win a sectional all 4 of my years. 2 times we were the favorites, 2 times we were the underdog. But my senior year, we lost to this team. Starts with a P, it's in the Mishawaka area. You guys may know it,
Yeah.
I think their nickname's the Kingsmen. So we lost my junior and senior year. And a
Mhm.
cool memory, even though we got beat, it was a regional. We played at Penn. And this is, no knock on Penn, but, we're an hour away. And I bet 3/4 of that place was orange and black. We
Wow.
just brought so many fans. And like we had a home court advantage at Penn,
That's
but unfortunately lost the game. Dean Foster was an unbelievable coach.
Hmm.
Um,
mhm.
and so did a great job. But yeah, those are some memories from Laporte days.
That's awesome. Yeah, for a lot of those stories. And you end up at Belmont. Um, for people that don't know, how'd you end up there? And then what are, again, some memories from Belmont?
Yeah, so Coach Bird, Belmont was NAIA until 1995. Then they moved over to Division One. So we were kind of still in that transition phase.
Mhm.
In 1999 when Coach Bird, he saw me at a tournament in Orlando. I played for the SYF players out of Gary, Indiana, and had some great teammates and guys that, played with, ton of athletes and just talented players. Shane Power, um, Vincent Hart, Ajabi Gillis, Eugene Wilson, who played for the Patriots, Tom Brady as a cornerback, defensive back, uh, Demetrius Kilgore, South Bend, Washington. And I played up my junior year. So I was, a younger guy. And I remember one game, I played a total of 10 seconds and I was 3 for 3 from three. They would bring me in for like a baseline out of bounds and run me off a stagger. And then the next dead ball, they'd take me out, you know. But it was an awesome experience. So Coach Bird saw me play there and started recruiting me, and I fit their system. And I was kind of a tweener, borderline D2 NAIA slash Division One guy because just I wasn't very big or athletic. Um, Scared away a lot of people with lack of those skills, but I fit their style well. Just a guy that understood how to play and handle it, pass it, shoot it, and gets the most out of his ability and those types of things. So it was a great experience. It fit me well. It was between IUPUI, Bethel, and Belmont were my final three, and ended up choosing Belmont just because of the style of play, the coaching staff. The Nashville was a cool city to go to college in.
Mhm.
But some memories there. We were Belmont was 7-21 the year before I got there. I got to give my college roommate a shout out, Adam Mark from Bremen, Indiana, um, who wasn't a. It was a good high school player, not a great one. Um, we go to college. I was probably more of a high profile high school guy. We go to college, it almost flipped. He got really, just our style of play, 4 out, 1 in. He figured out how to play the 5-man of getting under, getting angles, and was unbelievable his junior, senior year. He was player of the year in our league, I think, our senior year. But, we're 7-21 the year before we got there, 13-15, 11-17. Then we went 17-12, and then 21-9. And so just kind of helping that program just build a culture, with you, Drew, the last couple of years, just kind of helping us build this culture, how we want it, based off humility and togetherness and toughness and just having a standard of excellence in the film room, in the weight room, and extra shots. And so Adam and I kind of help, I think, move that forward in the right direction. And to the point we get to our senior year, and we finished with a 78 RPI in the country and beat number 23 Missouri and number 25 Air Force, and played in a great league at the time. We finished third in the league at 15-5. Troy State, Georgia State finished above us, and so yeah, I'd say that maybe that game at Missouri was one of the better memories there. Just
Yeah.
beating a ranked team. They started the year ranked third.
Wow.
They were 23 at the time, and that was just a fun time just to kind of help get that program moving in the right direction.
Oh,
It's got to
that's
be,
really
and Drew, before you get to your question, it's got to be cool to see now where Belmont's at with Coach Bird and then Coach Alexander taking over. We talked with Brody Peebles, who's a senior guard out in Belmont now, just the historic run that they've been
Yeah.
on. I mean, you could trace it back to back when you guys were first starting out, your freshman, sophomore, junior year. So it's got to be cool for you to look back on and see that.
Mhm.
It's
Yeah, you
cool. You try to take a lot of those philosophies that Coach Bird had, of recruiting right type of guys. Drew's obviously one of them, and Rev, you're a part of our program, as a character coach, and just getting the right kind of guys is huge.
Yeah, you spoke on the style of play. Ryan, whenever the coaches would play in our off season, like Coach Drabyn was the guy you wanted on your team because he's just constantly screening, moving, getting guys in right positions. Fun to play with, and he can shoot the living crap out of it.
That was
So
fun that time we played that summer.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it was fun.
That
And so your playing career, I mean, although I still see you play morning hoops, do you still do that, Coach?
we do. It's harder during the season to
Yeah,
get up at 5:30 a.m. to go play.
for
But yeah, I try to once a week in the off season.
for sure. But playing career, kind of done. But you get into coaching. How'd you end up in coaching? Is it something you always wanted to do? And tell us a little bit about your journey and how you end up at Bethel, because you've been at multiple stops and you've been an assistant, now head coach. Just kind of talk on your journey and how that all happened.
Yeah, so growing up, the son of a coach, my dad, coached for many years. I think he coached it a total of 40 years. So just watching him coach, I love the relationships that he had with players. I just love that interaction. And one unique, cool thing about my dad is he could just connect with all different types of personalities and backgrounds. And, our team, he was an assistant on my SYF team. We were based out of Gary. We had guys from the region, and he could connect with all different types of people. And so I love that aspect of it. And, I hope I'm similar in that I can connect with different types of personalities and people and backgrounds. And so that kind of started my journey of coaching. And, I was almost a coach on the floor when I played. And so it was kind of a natural progression. And I knew I wanted to stay in the game. And, the purpose thing, I mean, you guys know this, like you have to have a purpose behind it. Otherwise you're going to burn out because it's late nights, it's scouting, it's, Drew, you're getting into it now and you're learning all the little ins and outs of things. It's not just basketball. It's not just coaching. There's so much more to it. The coaching part of it might be 10% of our jobs, at the end of the day. But then when I went, growing up in Indiana, at a one high school town, LaPorte, where we had great fan support, I wanted to be an Indiana high school basketball coach. And when I got into college, my junior year, I connected with a couple guys. Will Wade was actually one of them in that group who, has coached at LSU and now he's at McNeese State. But I remember rooming with him at one of those summer camps. I think we were at Tennessee Tech doing a team camp, and I think it was that year I led the country in free throw percentage, and he had no idea. And he came down to the breakfast. Drabyn, why did you tell me? But we had about 4 or 5 of us. We just worked camps around the country, UCLA, Notre Dame, Kentucky, and just networked. And that kind of got me into the coaching world a little bit and connecting with people. And then once I was done at Belmont, kind of moving my way towards the college game. And but I like both. I could coach both. I coached at Carmel High School for 3 years and been at the college level now, I think 16 or 17 years. So yeah.
What for me, I personally want to know this, but others who are listening, for young or even just all assistant coaches, what advice would you give if you could give one thing for them?
Yeah, that's a great question. So my answer to that, I remember Coach Alexander, Casey Alexander, who was one of my assistants at Belmont, and then I coached with him at Stetson and Lipscomb. I remember asking him a similar question. We would go on runs, once or twice a week, and I would try to save all my questions for those, try not to bother him too much. But I remember asking him, hey, what's some advice you could give me as a young assistant coach and aspiring to be a head coach at some point? And his answer I thought was really, really good. He said, every decision I make, when it comes to the team, administrative stuff, whatever it is, think on what would you do? How would you handle that? How would, and so from that point on, I think I coached with him another 5 years. Every decision that he made, I tried to think, okay, how would I? And I even started writing down notes because there's so many things in coaching. Like you could coach for 50 years and still not have all the answers. And so I thought that was great advice. Just anything Coach Wingreen does, man, just how would you do that? If you were in his shoes?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that's good. On that note, we're going to shift a little bit from thank you for sharing your story. I think that's some good advice too, for young coaches, but and young professionals. Like I know for me, when I was starting out in ministry, someone gave me similar advice of just, hey, when you're in situations, one, you respect the decision that your leader makes and follow it, be all in. But two, it's okay to take a journal. I think it was actually your brother-in-law, Woody, told me to start writing stuff down. Like, what would you do? What would you do differently? How would you handle situations? And so, that's good advice for coaching, but it's a good advice for anything. For you
Sure.
though, how we've kind of talked about this a little bit, but basketball has been a huge part of your life with your dad being a coach and your family, just all a bunch of hoopers. How would you say that looking back now, how it's shaped who you are today?
Yeah, just growing up with my dad and in the coaching world and just all the situations he went through and decisions he had to make and come from a sports family. My two younger sisters coach. Kristen's assistant coach at Butler now. Amy has coached in and out. And they both played at the college level. Amy volleyball, Kristen basketball, and so it's just kind of in our blood. And it's just we analyze games till you know late night hours and things of that nature. It's just the memories and the relationships and but how it shaped me. It's I would say high school, even a lot of college. My identity was wrapped up in the game. And you guys have similar stories. I've heard your stories on things were going well in basketball. Man, you guys were on cloud nine and feeling great and doing great. But when basketball maybe didn't go your way, individual or team, you felt in the dumps. And so I had very similar experiences of, when my game was good, I was good. When my game was bad, I was bad. And, hopefully as I've grown in the faith and matured and I still struggle, we all do. Um, but it's shaped my identity where I think my third year here, the year before you got here, Drew, maybe it was the hardest coaching year by far. I hope it stays that way. But just, we didn't win games and we were inconsistent and, we had selfishness and entitlement and it was challenging. And I had a lot of mornings with God asking, what's going on? Like, what am I doing? What can I do different? And you just got to put your faith in him and not circumstances or things that happen. So I think that's shaped me the most and um in that respect on the game of basketball in a parallel to life.
I think that's good. I think something, and this might have been something you've taught me, maybe not said the words, but I was reminded of it this past week. The emotions that we feel after a win or a loss, the emotions that we feel are not a sin, but what we do with those emotions is going to choose to whether we choose to sin out of those emotions or surrender those emotions. And I think that, I mean, as competitors, it can be so easy to act like, oh no, when I'm angry after a loss, that's bad. No, the anger is not bad, but what we do out of that anger could be bad. And so I think as
Sure.
competitors, it can be encouraging that way. Next question, last question for me before we head into leadership. For you, obviously you're at a Christian college right now, but the reality is some of the players that you bring in, some of the people you have around the program aren't necessarily on the same faith journey that you're on or aren't necessarily as far along or might not even know if they fully believe in Jesus. So how have you been able to, in your playing career, in your coaching career, throughout it all, been able to blend your faith and your commitment to excellence and your striving for greatness and your love for the players that way?
Yeah, great question. So one thing I liked about some of the places I've been, like the previous place I was at, Lipscomb, and now Bethel, we're a ministry. It's a part of the fabric of who we are as an institution, and it's our mission. But we don't have to recruit all Christians. Not sure we want to recruit all non-Christians either, but just we try to be of the world, and have a balance. And the cool part is just guys that come in that maybe don't have much of a faith or know much about it. Just seeing them, um, watch a Drew Lutz or, watch a Trent Edwards or a Luke McBride and see how they live their life and that it's not about, although they want to compete to the highest level and be the best they can, at the end of the day, that's not who they are. That's not their identity. Pastor Woody, you mentioned him earlier. He spoke yesterday to our team. We practiced at Butler on the way up, and he talked about just that. It's not about who you are; it's about whose you are, and your identity being in them. And I could just see our guys; it just resonated so well with them. And it's great having people like you, Rev, and Drew, when you played, speak the same message that you're trying to speak to these guys. And that I guess Coach Drabyn, maybe makes sense on that identity piece or because Rev's saying it, Drew's saying it, Pastor Woody's saying it, and so
Mm.
just having that message be consistent across the board. And but that's the fun part. We had James Anderson a month ago, and he made a decision for Christ, and I know Drew was a big part of his growth and his faith, and obviously you, Rev, and stories like that that's why you do it. That's our why as coaches, and if it's not, we'll burn out quickly.
That's right. Yeah, I think that was a part of the reason why I came to Bethel, Coach, was you talked about how you don't have to recruit Christians. Like I understood your heart for loving Jesus and having good people around you, but I thought it was so cool that you didn't just have to bring in Christians and we could kind of show them the light of Jesus. And so, yeah, I just thought that was really cool. And then hearing the stuff like with James, that was very encouraging. And just, yeah, I feel like you've done a great job of like planting seeds, even if it doesn't hit them in these years, but maybe in the future it will, just by how you're living and how you're mentoring them. It's been really cool.
Yeah, we're vessels, all three of us in our program here at Bethel, like just trying to be the hands and feet of Jesus and let him live through us, work through us. And we can't save people, but we can be vessels to help get the gospel in them. And that was a great one with James, and yeah, helps us grow as well.
Sure.
That's great. I think you do a great job of facilitating that and bringing in multiple voices and whatnot to communicate the same message in different ways, which is huge and a great leadership tactic. It doesn't just have to be your voice. And so now we're entered into, typically we do about 4 or 5 minutes of leadership talk. I would love to hear from you as the head coach of Bethel University, Hoop Dirt Coach of the Week, all this stuff. What are you learning today about leadership that you might not have known before?
Yeah. Man, you guys are asking great questions. That's what you do in this podcast. Man, leadership is so big. I mean, Drew was on our leadership team, those 2 years he was here, and, we're still meeting with those guys once a week, or trying to do it once a week. And, but just, it's, I've heard on your podcast before, it's influence on other people. It's being a model. Craig Groeschel I listen to his leadership podcast, probably 2 or 3 times a week. And, he's got such great content. I'd highly recommend that. Reading leadership books. This is probably my 5th or 6th plug on Rooted Influence, Rev. I think I've mentioned it on every podcast I've been on.
Man.
So I hope that just keeps ascending.
Need to
They're
start
just
getting
being
you
rooted.
some profit from that or something.
Come on, man. Yeah, 10% or something. But just being rooted in our faith, and reading that book right now, the Humble Life. It's just our core values and who we are. Faith, unity, humility, leadership, and process. Trying to stay in the Word. Leadership is. And I know I'm rambling around here, but like the best leader of all time is Jesus, and so like I'm trying to continue to learn more about who he is, how he handled situations from a compassion standpoint. Maybe the best thing I heard lately was listening to a leadership podcast on Craig Groeschel. Was it's so important as leaders you have to encourage and you also have to challenge. Like you have to be both. There's some people that just challenge or just hard. There's some people who just encourage, but you got to have that balance of both. The best leaders can do both and do them both often. You got to challenge your people that you're leading, but you also got to encourage as well. I think of guys on our team that maybe don't play as much. I've got to challenge them and encourage them as well. And then players that maybe play a good amount, like I've got to challenge those guys and also encourage and keep them on edge. Al Petulas played a great game on Saturday, but yesterday in practice, we're going to play Georgetown today, and he brought the ball over his head and stood up and turned it over. And no, we don't do that, so I challenged him to be better. And so I think that's good for the other guys in the team. Gosh, if you're challenging Al, one of our best players, I tried to do that every day with Drew. Anytime I could find a mistake that Drew made, I tried to always, because man, if he's getting on Drew, what's he think about me? So, but you got to both challenge and encourage to be the best leader.
Absolutely. Sometimes we give time to give shout outs to some of your favorite leaders, some people that influence you. You've mentioned your dad, you've mentioned Coach Alexander, Coach Bird. Anyone else you want to throw out there just to thank them for the influence they've had on your leadership?
Yeah, for sure. A couple, those three are heavy hitters for me. My JV baseball coach, Bob Schellinger, I thought was really good. Just he was both humble, but he also challenged you and was willful and strong and tough, and he did it the right way. I always say this: my fifth grade basketball coach, Bob Snyder. So he was just a tough, disciplinarian, defensive-minded guy. He was a custodian at our school, and I remember when we had two teams at our school, and I can't remember who the other coach was, but I remember being, I was down that we had him as a coach, but I didn't know anything about him. And then when I had him as a coach, man, he was awesome, and I still connect with him to this day. He comes to a couple games a year, and just a great mentor and leader. So yeah, I'd say kind of those two right there. Rev, you've been a big one for me lately, man. I'll give you a shout out, and just with some of the content you provide our guys, in leadership and even players, our players, man, like Trent Edwards, 5 years he's been with me, and Drew Lutz, the 2 years you were with me. Just you got to learn from guys that you're trying to lead as well.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Really cool to see the growth of Trent, man. He was one of my favorite teammates I played for, just how unselfish he was, and just he'll do whatever it takes to make the team better. I thought really cool to see what he's doing this year.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been great.
I told him he's one of my favorite players, Trent Edward. We need to get him on the podcast here pretty soon. But with that, just thank you so much, Coach, for hopping on. We know you're a busy guy, winning awards, winning basketball games. If you get the chance, if you're in the Northern Indiana area, you've heard us talk about Crossroads League basketball. Drew and I are always going to push you toward Y Camp Center in Mishawaka, Indiana, to the Bethel basketball games. Get out, support, watch some games. It's really high-level basketball, really good players. You get to watch a great coach as well. So, Coach, thanks for hopping on.
Man, thanks for having me. Appreciate you guys.
Absolutely. On behalf of myself, Drew, and Coach Steve Drabyn, thank you so much for joining us on the Faith Sports Leadership Podcast. Have a great week. Go be a light, friends.
At least Mom will be listening.
So if you bring up Counter Stallions, we're just not going to listen to you.